Hey everyone, welcome to the Bible Belt Bros podcast. Today again with my brother-in-law Matt.
Yo.
We're hanging out, actually still on New Year's Eve. We recorded 2 in a row, but we didn't release them at the same time because I knew I'd get lazy and not edit one of my episodes, and so I was ready for my laziness, my breaking my New Year's resolution.
Planning ahead must be your New Year's resolution.
I was planning ahead on not fulfilling my New Year's resolution. Here we are, like, weeks into the new year, probably. I don't even know what week yet, but I bet it's
COVID's
not.
probably over.
Yeah. Oh,
Everybody got the injections.
I don't even think Biden has gone into office yet. I think.
Let's predict what's going to happen between now and this podcast is posted.
Okay, so government shutdown, people storm.
Everybody had microchips implanted in their bodies from the vaccine, and we're all robots now.
We're all robots. Well, hopefully we're all get a stimulus check to stay home. Amazon is taking over, and everything is delivered via robots or drones to our houses.
That's right.
We no longer have to work. We're getting just a stipend from to live.
Bitcoin.
Yeah. Yeah, which at the time of this podcast, there's an NFL player that got some of his salary, half his salary on Bitcoin. So whatever that means. I don't know if that's affected it or not.
Right.
So, which I was thinking about that because I was like, Bitcoin is really being used more as a trading thing, like a stock thing.
Yeah.
But I know a day trader back in the day, and he actually did that. You can trade currencies. You can buy this many Australian dollars and then know that it's going to go down or whatever. Mm-hmm. So that is a thing. So
it is a thing.
Bitcoin can be still a currency, I guess is my point.
Yeah.
Side conversation. You guys have not heard any of this, but hey, all right. So today, I'd like to talk about conspiracies because
I never heard of that.
I've already heard a bunch about this vaccine and possibilities of them injecting you, it altering your DNA was one that I was told.
Yep.
That it could be a microchip implanted in you, which
tracking device.
I don't get that one because we have a tracking device called our cell phones. And when you turn your cell phone on airplane mode, guess what? It's still tracking you.
Yes.
You're not, the government's like, I want to know where they are and what they're doing, but they have it on airplane mode. That's not how the government operates or anybody operates or advertisers operate.
But what about like Apple, right? Like they won't unlock somebody's phone. Like, even if the government asks them to.
Yeah, which Apple has this year because I'm in marketing for my job. And so one of the things is, if you were to go to a Home Depot website and look at tools, and then you're hit by all these different tools. That's called
if you just
marketing.
say the word tool out loud and around your phone, you get emails about
That's
tools.
A conspiracy. But if you just talk, you've seen those memes where husbands like talk PS4, PS5, PS5, or whatever in their wife's phone so that she gets hit with those ads for Christmas presents or whatever. Apple's trying to close down some of that, and you have to opt into those cookie sharings into those websites, which for me personally, I would rather have that than getting hit with ads that don't apply to me. I'd rather have ads that apply to me because I'm searching for tools. I want to know what other tools are out there. Not that I search for tools ever because I'm not a manly man, but here we go. And so today we are going to talk about conspiracies and why they're so awesome.
Why do people get sucked into them?
I love conspiracy theories.
They're hilarious.
When I owned my own business, we had conspiracy theory Wednesdays, and Wednesdays we just play like 9/11 documentaries and all these conspiracy theories. We just let them play all day.
Yes.
But I was wondering the other day, because lately with the election stuff going on, with COVID going on, I've been hearing a lot of prayer requests for the end times happening.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, the world's it's gonna happen. This is gonna happen this year. We might not even have made it to 2021 at this point. We don't know yet. And
that'd be sad.
So it just made me think that is the reason that I'm really into conspiracy theories or other Christians, because it does seem to be a lot of Christians are into conspiracy theories in general. But is it because of us trying to understand Revelation and Revelation in the end times, and we're trying not to miss it like the Jews missed it when Jesus came back, seeing all the signs,
Right.
Seeing it in the stars. They all missed that, Is Revelations kind of the reasoning that Christians tend to be more engulfed in conspiracy theories? Or is it just because they're fun and it's more fun to believe in a conspiracy theory than to believe in the truth?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, if you look at the book of Revelation, obviously it's one of the most symbolic and cryptic books of the Bible, right? I mean, it's just chock full of symbolism. Whether you think Revelation has already happened, the events described have already happened, or whether you think they're going to happen in the future, no one's going to argue that it's not symbolic. I mean, you got dragons with like 12 heads and, all the numbers mean something, and the moon turning to blood and all this stuff, right? And anytime there's a significant piece of knowledge or information that's really hard to understand, I think people's brains just go crazy. Mm-hmm. And you try to fit in their worldview and in what they're seeing and experiencing day to day. They try to make everything make sense. And so there's this like drive to like make Revelation make sense. It's one of the books of the Bible. And I mean, look, 500 years ago, most people couldn't read. And so the people who could read were like the religious leaders, and they weren't reading Revelation to their congregations. Mm-hmm. So there wasn't any conspiracies around it then because nobody really knew about it. And now most people can read, and you read this book, and unless you're like a pretty advanced theologian, I think, your brain just kind of goes crazy trying to figure out what in the world it means.
Yeah, and I definitely don't understand a word of Revelation. And so I've never been one to study it because I never knew the point. Like, to me, it's like, so if I study it and I'm correct in my theory, do I get to brag about it on the way up to seeing Jesus in heaven? Like, hey guys, I was right. Right. Did you see my blog? Right.
Is understanding Revelation a prerequisite to salvation? I don't think so.
I don't even. John didn't. Was John Revelation dude?
John the Revelator. It must have been.
He didn't understand it. He was just like.
He's like, I had this vision.
It could be nothing, but I'm going to write it down.
I haven't studied it a lot personally either. I think when I was a kid, during like the sermons that were really boring to me, I just started reading Revelation when I was sitting in the pew because I had this fascination with all the weird imagery in it. And I always thought it was telling the future. Like it's whatever, something's going to happen at the end. There's actually going to be like a dragon and all this crazy stuff's going to go down. One of the smartest guys I know that I've heard talk about it, had the belief that besides the first 3 chapters, everything in Revelation has already happened. It was prophecies about what was about to happen to the nation of Israel. It was written in symbolic language so that the Romans or whoever it was that was in power would not get a hold of it and destroy it. Mm-hmm. It was a message that people at that time would have understood, and they would have understood all the symbolism. And that's kind of like a disappointing view for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah.
Because it's like, wait a minute, it's already happened? I can't figure out who the Antichrist is anymore. Like, it's not Joe Biden. It's not.
Well, if it already
Hitler.
happened, then who was the Antichrist? Like Herod, or whoever,
I think it was like one of the Caesars or something.
Yeah,
I think I don't know.
I mean, that could be it. It could. I mean, that would have been 2,000 years ago now. Almost.
Yeah, it's written in a an apocalyptic language style, and you've got all this symbolism. Christians were being super duper persecuted at the time that it was written. And it would have given people a lot of hope to hear something about how God is going to win in the end.
Right.
And I think that's the reason people like it now, too, right? I mean, we use it to talk about the ultimate victory of Christ over Satan.
Biden might be president, but by golly, our Lord is still supreme.
That's right. So, yeah, I think people just get sucked into trying to fit, pegs into holes, right? Somebody writes a book about how all this stuff is lining up for the end of the world, and some people buy into it, and it gets them book sales.
Now, I would counter you. I do not know
You'll take a contrary view.
Yes, I will. So the Bible refers to us as sheep, right?
Sometimes.
And sheep are dumb. Sheep just follow whatever.
They need a shepherd.
Whatever. They need a shepherd. So
yes.
So my thought process is, just like the Israelites. So some of the things I think are wrong with the church now, for instance, is exactly the same root reason that the Israelites were always wrong. Like they're if you read the Old Testament, the Israelites were like, you're just constantly yelling, like, why are you doing this? Because you literally have God right there and you're doing it.
Yeah.
And so my thought process is are we, in a sense, sheep, where it is, we'll just go with whatever somebody tells us. Yeah. In a sense, where I don't have an example, but like let's do 9/11 just because it's fun.
Yes.
So we're just gonna go along that nobody had a clue that this was gonna happen. That whatever insurance policy, like I don't know if any of this is fact, so please don't quote me or throw me in a category.
Are you going to start talking about the melting point of steel and how
no? But I wondered,
melted?
Have you ever done that? Because you are, a guy that does experiments for a living. I figured that would be right up your alley.
I've never built a scale model of the World Trade Center and determined the melting point at which it would collapse.
Okay, well, I'm bummed out because of that.
So I got to say I'm going with what I've read on that.
But so to believe that just happens when you have all these powerful people that spy on all of our phone calls and all this stuff, and they are shocked that these guys were trained to fly, all this kind of stuff, that I think where some conspiracy theories go wrong, especially 9/11, is there's some that are just like way out there, like holographic plane where it was actually a missile. Like, come on, dude. Like,
right.
Come on.
Hologram for real.
But there's some things, and I don't know about the steel stuff, but just some things when you follow some of the money, and it's like somebody had to have known, in a sense.
Somebody had to have known.
Somebody allowed it to happen or whatever.
Right.
To further we want to go invade a different country, not the country.
That's one of the theories. Yeah.
That's one of the theories. And so, but to me, like, as we're sheep, we typically just go with whoever our shepherd is. So like for us, is typically the president of the United States. Would be our, whatever he says, that's the truth. Unless you're Donald Trump, then we don't believe a word that you're saying. It's all fake news. And but so that would be my counteract. Is it wrong to ask those questions? No, but some of those things that you guys come up with, come on.
No, yeah, and I mean the first thing you do when you hear a conspiracy theory is you start looking it up. If you care about it, you start looking it up, and you think, wow, I can't believe this is a conspiracy theory. I'm going to see where this came from, and I'm going to see why in the world people would think that, right? And so, the 9/11 thing, you can read all sorts of stuff on that. Revelation, you can look up all the different people who had all the different ideas about, whether the events in Revelation have already happened, whether they haven't happened. You can go and look at that stuff up. And having information so accessible to us right now is one of the reasons I think that there are all these conspiracy theories, because people know just enough to be dangerous.
Yeah. So let's go through some conspiracy theories we've heard or read or whatever. So
How far back?
One that is current is that, because I've always thought, when is, like, if the revelation happened and all the Christians just left Earth, basically, that has to, like, throw some red flags to people, right? But so how can it not throw red flags? COVID. All these people drop dead. We have, like, the biggest death rate of COVID, and it will be blamed on meetings of the churches together, spreading COVID to each other. We all drop dead and we go to heaven. So
I've not heard that.
I kind of came up with it.
Oh, you started the conspiracy theory.
I started the conspiracy theory.
This is awesome.
But what are some, like, conspiracy theories that you've heard in the
past? You got the moon landing. That's one that sticks out to me.
Oh, yeah.
We didn't actually land on the moon. Like, it was just a movie set, right?
Right. And the biggest reason because of that is because we haven't really gone back.
Not very much.
Went
there a couple times, and we haven't gone back.
And so people are confused of why, especially when they're like, we're going to build a space station.
That's right.
And maybe it was just a bad idea.
That's right.
That there's just rocks up there.
There's all sorts of political conspiracy theories, right?
Yeah, because it was Russia. We were in a fight with Russia at the time, right? Was that Russia? Who were we in a fight with?
Yeah, Russia. It was the space race.
Yeah,
right. That's what drove a lot of innovation on how to get into space. The Russians got the first satellite up with Sputnik, or first whatever it was thing in orbit. We got the first man on the moon. Kennedy famously said, "We're going to go to the moon in this decade."
Right.
And so they had to make it happen. And so some people think they just faked it.
And it's one of those things like, I can't prove that you didn't.
Well, and there's always with all these conspiracy theories, there's a shred of truth in all of them, right?
Right.
So there's like on the moon, I think there's some picture of the flag, and people say, well, the sun is over here, and the shadows going the other way, so it proves there was a stage light,
right?
Or the chemtrails conspiracy theory, the airplanes flying in the sky, and those white little trails come off of them. Everybody sees that, and so there's the shred of truth. They're there.
Right.
And then the conspiracy theory is there's mind control chemicals
I can't remember what famous person I heard talk about how, what was it? Like every time they saw chemtrails in the projects or whatever, they would just feel differently.
Yeah.
It was the thing to keep them lower and not try to be better than what they were or something like that.
I mean, anything where there's a cover-up, right? And then every once in a while, there are actual cover-ups, and people are like, see? They're covering stuff up.
Yeah.
And then they think that validates all of the cover-up theories, right? I mean, I know in my area, in chemistry, right, there have been some really bad players in history from like a chemical safety standpoint, right? There's been drugs that have been released that have actually been really harmful to people or to the environment.
Yeah.
Chemicals that have been really harmful to the environment. DDT comes to mind, the pesticide. The modern environmental movement was started in response to chemical companies not doing their homework on DDT and how it was really messing up the eggs of birds. And of course, and then to go along with that, the people in power at those companies or in the government or whatever want to cover up the bad stuff they did. And so you've got all these people spewing out falsehoods. Or like, look at the cigarette companies, another example, right? They said it was great for you. They try to cover up for as long as possible that smoking was bad for you.
Right.
And so people in power try to cover up the truth when it removes their power or removes their money or whatever.
Yeah.
And so there's tons of examples in the past of conspiracy theories or just people in power abusing that power and covering up the truth. And so as long as that's there in people's minds, then all these other conspiracy theories are going to be possible to them.
Because they're real. No.
Yeah, I mean...
Because they actually are real. Now, there is one, I feel like I read this yesterday when I was kind of looking up conspiracy theories that turned out to be true. Yep. Because basically at some point I think they released documents or classified documents are released. You would know more than this than I do. But like periodically they'll release classified documents.
The government does. Yeah, they just dump it.
Yeah, and there. I think they have to do it? After a certain point?
Well, there's like the Freedom of Information Act where people can request stuff. But then there's also periods where they declassify certain documents. And again, I don't know the details if it's a certain amount of time or if it's due to people's requests or what. But you're right. They do release like treasure troves of previously confidential documents at certain times.
One of those that I read that was supposedly true was the theory the government was going to drop a bomb on some country, but it was to release like female hormones into the air, and it was supposed to like mellow out the troops that they were getting ready to invade.
A nation
or something
of
like
pansies.
That. Yeah, I can't remember what they called it. It's pretty funny. But another one that turned out to be true, that I think people hold on to, especially even today, was this is according to businessinsider.com. So if it's not true, then whatever. But I've seen it multiple places. It's hard to find
it is
conspiracy theories that turned out to be true on websites like CNN or MS. Yeah. I saw some on MSNBC as well.
It's not current news, so.
Right. So you have to go to like Parler. No, I'm joking. But the CIA recruited top American journalists to spread propaganda in the media and gather intelligence. So in the 1950s, during the Cold War, the CIA approached leading American journalists in an attempt to influence public opinion, as well as spy. Like when people say off the record, like they would get those details and report it back to the CIA and stuff like that. And so now, especially now with this election,
the media,
people, like. Lots of Facebook posts being taken down of Trump supporters,
or labeled.
Yeah, or labeled like, or you see like the fact checking of Facebook, especially like. People go back to this. Well, the government's done it once before.
Who are the fact checkers? Who's fact checking the fact checkers?
Yeah,
I mean, who are these people?
And so, and I know a couple different people that get temporary bans on their Facebook account because of sharing a post or something like that.
Yeah.
And so I typically don't share any kind of political stuff. It's whatever. I shared one thing.
Unless it's humorous.
I shared one thing recently. It was one of the senators of Oklahoma just talking about like the election process, the things you have to go through. It was like right after this whole thing happened, and a lot of the fishy stuff or whatever on the other states. And he was just going through like the process, and Al Gore went through this process. This isn't anything new, to want to fact check all the different things,
ask for recounts, that kind of stuff.
And I got like slammed by some girl, and that was going on, and I was like, listen, I'm just sharing a post from our senator of our state. Like, calm down. And she's like, well, it's your opinion to believe that or whatever. And I was like, great. So what are we here for? Like, I don't get it. Well, and it's my right to believe what I want, but don't believe, but you're stupid for believing it, is what she was saying.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole other podcast.
So that was a conspiracy theory that turned out to be true. It was in the 50s. The CIA basically gathered journalists and used them for information and spreading propaganda in our country and other countries. So it wasn't just the United States.
Yeah. I mean, and that's a whole thing. Media control of information is like a huge thing right now, right? I mean, people get their news from the media and social media.
You never know what's true anymore.
You don't know what's true. You have to spend 25 minutes to an hour to look up anything.
Yeah.
That is like put out there that seems sketchy. You're like, well, I guess I better find 5 different angles on this one story and see which one's actually true.
Right.
If I can.
And I see so many like memes about that, TikToks about it or whatever, that are like, this is the story people aren't talking about. And it was like the Kumo guy.
Como?
Yeah, whatever.
Kumo.
I guess he has like some sexual harassment charges, and they were like, the amount of news stations reporting, even reporting it, is 0, and and it was just like.
Or you look at like with the vaccines, right? Like Trump predicted a lot of things, right?
Right.
But he predicted that the vaccine companies would wait till after the election to fully announce the results of their vaccine trials, and so they get approved, and that's what happened. So immediately, all the people who were like on that train.
Did they say something like it would take a miracle for that to happen, or whatever?
All the people who were on that train were just like, yeah, that's what he said was going to happen.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, all the other conspiracy theories are validated because of one prediction that was correct or whatever.
Right. Well, and with that was, I've seen like the people like clip what senators were saying, like, COVID's not going to be that bad, it's not as bad as the flu,
Right.
And then all of a sudden they flipped, and I can't believe Trump has not acted so, he hasn't acted quickly. He's the reason it's spreading so, and like, wait a minute,
And there's so much access to information now.
I think there's too much, and we just can't follow.
You can't investigate everything, and so you just end up hearing bits and pieces here and there, or there's too much unknowns. I mean, another classic example is the vaccine autism thing. That was huge. Like, vaccines cause autism, right? I mean, nobody knows what causes autism.
Right.
So, of course, it'd be great to have a reason for it to be, like, that it happens, something that you could tie it to. And one scientist in France comes out with a paper that says it happens, and everybody jumps on it. For the next 15 years, people are saying that it happens, and scientists are arguing the other way, and it's this giant conspiracy thing. And, there's a shred of tiny truth in a lot of things. Sometimes there's not any truth at all. There's just bad information.
Right, yeah.
But, I mean, if you want to bring it back to the Revelation thing, I think
I got one more.
Do it.
One more conspiracy theory that turned out to be true, and it's one of my favorites. The CIA conducted mind control experiments on unwitting U.S. and Canadian citizens, some which were lethal. So, this is. Have you ever heard of MK Ultra? It's like. Have you seen the movie with Denzel Washington with the I almost said Mandalorian candidate.
Manchurian candidate. Oh, yes.
So apparently that was an actual government testing. It doesn't say actually ever used, but that they had done tests when it comes to. They utilized 80 institutions such as hospitals, prisons, universities. And they ran experiments on subjects using drugs, hypnosis, verbal, physical abuse, And in 1973, the CIA director Richard Helms ordered for some destruction of documents, but not all of them. Anyways, so the one that I like is people refer, because with some of the conspiracy people are now referring back to things that have been released now that say that they're true. So now it gives us the point of this is true, so it's true in this situation.
And the government's done a lot of crazy stuff.
Yeah, they do.
I mean, have you seen the movie The Men Who Stare at Goats?
I actually haven't.
With George Clooney?
But I know what you're talking about.
I mean, there was actually people looking into like paranormal techniques to like stop people's hearts with their mind.
Yeah.
And that was there. There was a nugget of truth to that.
So people use this MK Ultra thing for like the Aurora, Colorado shooting, like school shootings a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Or what they use this, like, because some of the things was temporary amnesia. Like they typically don't remember what happened before or during.
Wow.
Whatever. So anyways, that was a funny one because that's one of them that I always get pointed to when something crazy happens. Like right now, the Nashville bombing happened. And so people are like doing those kind of things. Like, you know, because typically now you're going to find that guy dead somewhere. You know, he's not going to be able to speak out his truth or whatever, those kind of things. And so you always hear those.
I think that MK Ultra thing is tied to this whole Men Who Stare at Goats thing. It's this whole psychological element, like psychological warfare.
Well, the Manchurian candidate is like a code word would set off whatever they were trained.
Like in Zoolander.
Yeah, like exactly like in Zoolander.
I mean, that's exactly right.
I mean, it's all right in front of us.
It's all tied together.
The government's just laughing at us how we can help.
You just have to connect the dots, and you'll see it.
But let's go back to Revelations. So I don't study Revelation.
Yeah,
because
and I've minimally studied it.
I don't see the point. But two, I don't understand it. But you had some reasons for things that we could do when reading Revelations or something. Like that.
I think something to keep in mind when you're reading any piece of scripture, right, is when was it written? Who wrote it? Who was the audience? And then, you know, what is the overall purpose of the book? And obviously there's 8 bajillion different opinions on the book of Revelation. But and I don't fault anyone for having a specific view, because everyone has arrived at their view in their own way. And if you studied it and done your homework and you have a certain view, then great. But I would say just really, really keep in mind the setting of the book, who was written to, and what the purpose was. I mean, if what you're reading doesn't have that stuff and it just launches into like conspiracy theories about the current world, like all these books that come out every couple of years about how the end times are here, and they use examples from modern.
There's books like 84 Reasons Jesus is Coming in 1984.
Right.
85 Reasons.
And they start tying various governments to the different, you know, symbols in Revelation, the current governments. And I mean, I'm sorry, people have been trying to do that forever. And I mean, I think it's kind of presumptuous, like to think that like our times are so bad and so special that this must be what's being talked about in Revelation.
Especially as Americans, like, I'm getting so like, I'm getting so much tribulation towards me. I'm getting so what's the word?
Persecuted.
I'm getting so persecuted for my belief in my faith, and we're not even close to what the people in the Bible
we have more
were.
individual freedoms than any other people in the history of the world as Americans.
But I can't post on Facebook, and by golly, that's the end times.
And and people get sucked into what I would call this like nationalist Christianity, right? That it's not just Christianity, but it's America and Christianity. And I'm sorry, America's been around for what? Since 1776, not even 300 years.
Yeah,
we're a speck on the you know, the timeline of global governments and powers. To think that, for me, from my view, to think that we're like anything special other than special from like a biblical standpoint, as far as like prophecies or something referring to the actual United States, to me is just like very presumptuous and arrogant.
Yeah.
So I would just say stay humble when you're reading and realize that you're not the only people that have ever existed. You're not the only people that have ever gone through some type of tribulation. And there's a possibility that you're wrong. Everyone should always read Scripture with the possibility that they're wrong with the way they're interpreting it, right?
Yeah, that would change so many, because some of the biggest battles and biggest church splits, there's just people both believing they're right with no possibility of them possibly being wrong. You know?
Yeah. Oh, man. I mean, that's exactly right. Churches have split over having a kitchen in the church. I mean... My church, in fact, split over that in the past. They added a kitchen, some people thought it shouldn't be there, and boom, you've got a split in a new church. And that's why there's 8,000 different churches in each major American city. You know,
that's insane.
So I think having a humble mind when you're reading Scripture is really important.
You might not be right, and that's okay.
That's right.
All right, well, we hope you guys had some fun listening to this podcast.
It was very scattered. I liked it.
Very scattered. But Revelation. Jesus is coming back. Maybe.
Eventually.
Have a good one, guys.
Eventually.
We'll see you later.